A lot of companies really struggle to connect their brands with very specific demographics. In fact, I talk about it all the time with my clients about who your ideal client persona is. And oftentimes we get companies and brands who are really trying to target a demographic that's very different than their own employees and their own administrative staff. And so the connection between them and their ideal persona can be very, very hard to connect. This episode is fascinating because I interviewed a woman who is an amazing expert on diversity and on connectivity to different demographics, and especially connecting with specific generational gaps that a lot of companies have a hard time doing. So if you are a company who's having a hard time connecting with a very specific generational gap or a very specific target audience, this may be the interview you have been waiting for, because you are going to hear some tips and tricks about how this woman, DeLisa Coleman, has been able to take her brand and not only connect it from old to young, but also take clients of hers and connect them to the perfect audiences that need to hear their message in a way that they want to hear it, which is the hardest part about marketing and one of the reasons why many businesses fail to scale. Welcome to the Growth and Scaling Podcast. This is your host, Todd Westra, and I am so glad you're here today because we are going to interview an amazing founder or executive who is going to share with us their decisions that they made that exploded their growth. So if you need some inspiration, you want to hear how other businesses are doing it, this is a place to be, and we are glad you're here. Enjoy this episode. I am so excited to have you on this podcast today, Lauren. I just want to take a minute though before, for my benefit and for those listening, give us a little intro. Who are you and what do you do?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Todd, for having me. What I do, I think, is rather unique, and so it doesn't have a typical title. It's funny. I remember somebody saying, I don't know, about 4 years or so ago, maybe even more, if you have a title that, everybody can explain and understand, then you're already obsolete. So I'm going to just go with that and assume that it's right. But the one that I've settled on most recently is future media architect, right? So one who is helping to shape all things future media. I define that as everything and anything emerging technology at the intersection of mass media and entertainment. Emerging technology being AI.
That's a mouthful.
It is. AI, 5G, digital currency, blockchain, Web3, and the metaverse. I'm absolutely passionate about anything around communications and media. It is so critical because it's informing us and kind of connecting us, but yet a lot of people I think kind of, just overlook it, and it's everything, right? So as traditional media and entertainment converge with this space, it's going to be even more powerful and it will move so fast. And so I'm working on several different things in this space to really help it to be as inclusive and innovative and fun and as amazing as it can possibly be. So there you have it.
Right. Well, that's a lot to unpack right there, because you just threw in every buzzword and every little future growth strategy that I've ever heard of. And I want to start from the beginning. I've done a little bit of background on you, and you are a pretty special human.
Thank you so much.
I mean, you have literally gone from the early days of MTV all the way into where we're at now with all the things you just mentioned. I mean, you have been involved in so much stuff as it relates to media, effective use of media for growth and growth strategy. Tell us a little bit along that journey, what's been your favorite, what are some highlights that you've seen along the way that have been your favorite part of growth within that strategy?
That's a hard question, but I mean, the through line for all of this, as you mentioned, is always, some form of media, media and technology, and certainly 18 to 24, 34, right? So that which we might call junior Gen Z and senior Gen Z and junior millennials. I always say I was 18 to 24, 34 before I reached that category, officially, and I will be that 93-year-old in the nightclub saying what's the hot song or whatever. It's just very intuitive to me. So
I love it.
What's been some of my favorite parts of the journey so far? that's really
Yeah.
challenging. But I would say, and not necessarily favorite in that they are so maybe beneficial or something like that. Some of them have been very hard, but maybe that you also learn from. So I think my first was deciding to be able to start my own business, acknowledging that I was an entrepreneur, I guess, from the very beginning. And that was and continues to be very challenging, but also very fulfilling. So that would be thing number one, and thing which just defines me as a person overall. I think two would be...
and that happened a long time ago, though, right?
I mean, first of all, Todd, I'm still only 21, so not that long ago, only joking.
I get it. 3 years ago. 3 years ago, right out of high school.
Right. But yes, that did happen quite a while ago. So I started my career, I guess, officially after I graduated from Columbia University in New York City. I was accepted their early decision. I didn't even think about going anywhere else. You're so naive sometimes. You're like, Ivy League school, yeah, I'm just going to go there. I've always been, as I said, involved in media. I know even when I was like 5 years old, I would make my own newspapers out of crayons on the floor. It's just something that I came to the earth with. Like, I'm sure if somebody looked at past lives, I was like some media magnet. I love it. So I worked on my high school newspaper. We got an award from the J School, the journalism school there, which obviously is very prestigious. I went and I was like, this is where I want to go to school. I was accepted, of course, English major, writing minor, and I actually concentrated in the philosophy of religious thought because I'm just interested in what people believe in general. So somehow that led me to working at MTV. I kind of scammed my way in there a little bit. You have to know somebody essentially, within media and entertainment. It doesn't function like, law or medicine, right? So I really, So I really had no connections. And so I was like, I don't know. I heard from somebody that they had an in-house temp program. And I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I didn't even know how to use Word or anything. And I managed to get in there and I just kind of maneuvered my way around. I always had the intent of working at MTV News. For those who are listening who, don't know about a time before TikTok, et cetera, look, this was the only way that you would know about the Cardi B's and things of the world, right? So this was...
That's the only way. I told my kids about MTV. They're like, and what?
Yeah, but it was really the end all be all. We were youth culture, and youth culture was us. And so it was very exciting to work there if you were in the position that you wanted to be in. And it was very challenging, though, like I said, to be able to be there. I was kind of shooed away from the news because I hadn't written for Rolling Stone. Why was that the end all be all, whatever. I started working in production. I'm not per se, in love with production, as you probably already know yourself from doing this. Production is very challenging, but I worked there for a few years. Understood, I think, really what branding was. What I took from MTV was really about how to brand and why the brand was so important and what a brand is. And I didn't even know about it, but I was just absorbing it all. It has stuck with me throughout my career. So I'm happy about that, even though I didn't get to where I wanted to be. Anyway, after a couple of years, I ended up working at what was at the time the hottest marketing company in the music industry for hip hop. This was at the time when we call the golden era of hip hop, when it was like, Cypress Hill dropped Black Sunday and Dre's The Chronic and so much more. So major labels did not know what to do with this kind of music. It was very new. So a lot of it was farmed out. So I was working at a company and I just had different ideas of doing proof of concept. I knew that more in terms of technology was going to be coming down the pike. So I stayed there for a little while and then I was like, why don't you just pay me half and I can work half the other time doing something else. And all he heard was pay me half, and that was fine. So I started to get my own clients. My first was Virgin Records because they had done a deal with Rap-A-Lot Records. Remember Rap-A-Lot, Ghetto Boys and all this back in the day? One of my first projects I'm proud to work on was like Scarface from Ghetto Boys' first platinum album was one of my clients, and it just took off from there. So I started my business. It was called Punch Media Group. At the height of that business, over a 10-year period, I had offices in New York, LA, and in Paris. I started to really gravitate to more things, mobile marketing and so much more. And just had the opportunity to work on projects with a number of different notable artists, everybody from, projects for Ice Cube with TBS and Are We There Yet? Eminem's first ever animated DVD, The Slim Shady Show. When Jay-Z decided he wanted to take rock internationally, we were hired by his former partner, Damon Dash, to support that in the, the European area, to help them break that, because out of my Paris office. So it was really wonderful until, like many things, it isn't, it's very tedious to do what had turned into, by that time, digital branding, right? Digital marketing, what we would call now.
Right.
And you are like, really one painstaking post and et cetera at a time. And it was just a bit too much after a little while. It just wasn't really gratifying. And I had actually I had decided to start an additional international business for my company. I went to Paris, set up everything. France and America have a special agreement. If you already have a corporation here, you can set up a corporation there relatively easily, whatever. I set up everything. I go back to LA and 9/11 happens, right? And so I was like, do I continue to fly? Do I not? Whatever. Very challenging period. It helped me to prepare for, the pandemic and all that craziness when you have a business that kind of is inside of a larger, event. But yes, it was very hard,
especially like people facing and all that. Yeah.
But there was no support like there was, your grants and all these other things. You really had to just regroup. Anyway, that though in and of itself was just such a beautiful, and continues to be a beautiful experience, because I was based there, lived there, but had the opportunity to access, the Middle East, Dubai, Oman, of course, pretty much all of Western Europe, and create different relationships. So I would say that's thing number 2. Sorry, you asked for 3, right? So, I guess pivotal moment number 1, becoming an entrepreneur. Pivotal moment number 2 was kind of taking that and maybe scaling it, as we're getting to that, in a global and international, I guess, way. And then kind of moving it into what I'm doing now, which we'll talk about, I guess, more, which is being able to touch more of a social impact side of that and broaden it even in a greater way, which I'm really excited about.
Right.
So that's my 1, 2, 3 for you.
I love it. That's a great 1, 2, 3. And those are 3 awesome highlights. And I don't think most people really understand the gravity of what you just did in your 1, 2, 3, because, you're talking about a time that I clearly remember, which was pre-email, pre-internet, all these things. And then expanding now into a world where, from our devices, we can get anywhere to anyone, anytime we want to. And so you have really been able to buck a lot of trends and understand how to navigate your business through almost any scenario, which I love, love, love.
Thank you so much.
Now, in all of that, tell me about your biggest challenge. If you
How
were
much
to
time do you have?
one
We
thing
can't be on the podcast all night, Todd.
Pick one challenge that you feel like a lot of other digital marketers or people that are running promotional through the type of digital media that you're talking about. What's a big challenge that you feel like you hit and overcame that they might be hitting right now?
Well, wow, it's a crazy thing, because as I said, after about a 10, 11 year successful run of Punch Media Group, I decided to pull back once my team all found additional positions, and I started to do what I guess I had always been innately kind of good at, which is being able to see future trends farther out and understand how younger audiences will connect with them. So I started working on this kind of informal research, which turned into formal research, which turned into this book that I self-published on Amazon, which Amazon luckily ended up selecting as one of its best new media studies. But I always say it's like documentaries that win the Oscar, like it gets acclaim, but like nobody knows about it. So my book was like that, but it did a lot of things. It helped me, brought me back to the States and Washington, D.C. for a number of different reasons, where I was asked to speak, and then got signed to leading authorities, which represents me. I started to be able to do things like create congressional briefings on the Hill around diversity in tech, being able to expand my own personal awareness and my business awareness more around, how do politics interface with business and so much more. But now I guess I've kind of taken all of that to be able to create a new type of concept marketing company, which I call Link, L-N-K is kind of spelled phonetically, Link Agency, which that is what it does. Link, depending on who the client is and whatever, with either a specific audience base or whatever. But the question is, what's the biggest challenge? Honestly, I will say that it is having enough of a connected network that is supportive and referring. I have to be honest, a lot of times when you are out front doing things, like I could say, I don't know, I'm an IT specialist, and people understand that, and so they can refer you and hire you. As you are sometimes true to yourself, and as you and your businesses may be evolving, and it's not quite easy to explain, it's very challenging to refer something that's an explanation. And I'm not a big one on the way I work, I don't, do Google ads or whatever. A lot of it is referrals. And it's kind of sometimes hard to be like, well, wait a second, her agency can help me with digital branding, but she can also help me book artists, but they can also, give me consulting around how to leverage, emerging technology, or if I want to do this in the metaverse. So it's kind of like you have to be as creative almost as we are. And so that's, challenging. I would say, that's side one, and that is the service business side of my life. At the same time, I'm taking a lot of what I've found as voids in the market to be able to work on an AI-driven media company. The challenge with that is moving from a service mind and revenue base to that now of something which is, clearly a product, and having to think and talk about like investors and how do you do that? How does one kind of convince those maybe about investing, that if you have something that's new and it doesn't have traction, what about using the traction of what I'm bringing to the space as an entrepreneur with decades of experience? Those type of things I find, it's challenging for sure.
I think that is a huge challenge. I think most companies, sometimes even large companies, really struggle with how to simply state what their business solves.
Wow.
You know what I think pretty much everybody.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I feel like it's me, and I'm a Pisces, and I talk a lot and I think a lot. And so I'm how do you say that?
It's an everyone problem. I'll tell you exactly how you say it. Most people don't know how to tell the story of what they solve. What problem do you solve? And that's the simplest way to describe your business. Even your problem, when you were describing that to me, the only thing I heard was you help a company figure out how to talk to a certain type of person. That's it, right? I mean, what you do in that whole summary of your life experience and your professional career, you are an expert. And I've seen you. I mean, you're published all over the place. Like, you are someone who is able to take a brand, take a product or a service and say, all right, you want to talk to Gen Z? Here's how you language this thing. Here's how you message this thing.
And I love it.
And that is what you do, Lauren. You are a queen at this. And so
thank you. Where's my crown? I hope my crown is from Cartier.
No, you definitely put the crown on. Put the crown on. Now, as you deal with other people who are like struggling with this, and you've hit walls like this before, how do I clarify what I'm doing? How do I message this the right way? Is there someone in your world that you look at and you're like, every time you hit a wall, you're able to go to lunch with them, or you just talk to them and you're like, okay, you just inspired me to make this pivot or make this messaging change, and I've done it. Like, is there someone you want to give a shout out to today?
I mean, I wouldn't say I would like to be this intimate with this person, but I will say that he has inspired me or continues to inspire me.
Awesome.
And our paths have crossed a couple of times in a weird way. I don't know why, but many people are familiar with him in the marketing space. He's like this. I didn't know how much of a God it was until I went to, how many people out here are like familiar with like Cannes Lion Festival, right? So there are, I mean, I went there a couple of I'm looking up something else right now online so I can give you the exact thing, but I went to Cannes. I was invited to Cannes Lion Festival several years ago. I was a contracted contributor in the innovation space for Forbes for many years. So I was covering a lot of it for Forbes.
Right.
And whenever you have the Forbes names attached to you, people just kind of gravitate. It's like a very cool thing.
Sure.
And so Spotify
it is a cool thing.
Had done, if anybody's ever been to like, okay, the beach, like kind of, like, I don't know what you even call them. They're like experiential areas on the beach that companies will take slices of the beach there. And it's just a whole, like a wonderful thing. So Spotify had their, of course, chunk. I was asked to host this panel discussion that they had on like diversity and branding, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Mark Pritchard, the CMO of P&G, was there, and it was him and a couple other people, but we just kind of really seemed to hit it off during the panel discussion, and I just felt that he was very sincere. There are a lot of people out here talking about inclusion and whatever, but Mark seems to really get it.
Right.
So I don't know. I just felt like I was very inspired by him.
I love it.
Fast forward about maybe a year after that, I was asked to do something similar at Vivatech in Paris, which is probably one of the largest by now. It's kind of like if everybody could imagine a CES based in Paris. Wonderful. And so
right.
They asked me to do a number of stage interviews, and lo and behold, one of them again was with Mark Pritchard, this time one-on-one. And it was really just great. Uh-huh. So I feel like he inspires me as somebody who
That's
can
awesome.
Be seemingly sincere and true to himself, support and uplift others, but still walk the walk and talk the talk of the brand. And I think he's just somebody cool.
That's a compliment. That's huge.
There's not a lot of, I hate to say, there's many C-suite people who are not, you know what I mean? They're saying it, but they're not doing it. I feel like Mark is just really one of those people, and he has the respect of his industry, his peers, and I like that. So if I had to pick a human,
I love it.
But a lot of times if I'm feeling like all over the place, I'm a big one for mantras and meditations, and I love this particular feed on Instagram called Commanding Life. A lot of those reaffirming things I think are really quite important because they do get deep down into your mind.
Agreed.
I also listened to this woman called Dana Wilde. I don't know if you've ever heard her. She has this podcast about brain training, how to train your brain to think about success, whatever. It's WILDE. I usually listen to her podcast as well for a boost. It's usually under 15 minutes as well. And I should be one to talk about brevity because I'm not being brief at all right now. But she is very inspiring. You will be like, yes, I
love it.
So those are definitely my go-tos.
I love it. Those are some great shout outs. And listen, I absolutely have loved our time together today. This has been an amazing show. I know that there's a lot of people who hit these walls and they get frustrated with changes in their business environment. And you've been able to adapt to so many different changes and grow your business, multinational, build a huge team. You're successful. You've been published. You're really living a dream that a lot of people look at and say, I want to live a life like that. And I want to, for you being 22 years old next March, I think this is a great example of how to do that. You know what I mean?
I really appreciate that because I think sometimes, I will say, and I'm not one to think about being a person of color and being a woman, but sometimes you do kind of think, well, maybe if I just do this next thing, I just need to do one more thing. Well, maybe one more thing to be right there. And I don't think that is helpful. I also will put this out there as well for people who feel that they may have hit a wall. I did this and I would highly recommend it if it's sincere. I started a social impact initiative called Game Change during the pandemic because I knew what hurdles I faced and I didn't want other women of color to face these as well, especially as we move into future media. So I started this initiative to be able to support women of color working toward leadership positions at the intersection of mass media and entertainment and emerging technology, feature media, and being able to, create programming and so much more around that. And that has not only been fulfilling just doing it, but I've met so many more people. And of course, so many other, corporations are open up to you because now you're speaking to them, not about your business, not about yourself, but about really truly helping others. And I think that's where we all need to be right now.
I love it.
It's really critical.
And it's fun. Well, when you hit a wall and you look outward at who you can help, it always makes everything kind of come together for you.
Does.
So I could totally resonate with that.
Although I still haven't cracked the code
cool.
about how to get corporations to move faster in their interests and needs. And if you know that,
that's nothing any of us can fix.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
That's nothing any of us can fix.
What is the story with that? I just want to know that. That's another challenge I'll put out there too. Yeah.
Next podcast.
Great answer. Great answer.
No, Lauren, you're awesome. You're awesome.
I feel the
I
same.
honestly, I appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
I hope people reach out, and we're gonna put all of Lauren's contact for these initiatives that she's involved in and everything that she's working towards right now in the show notes. And so we look forward to engaging with you in the future, and I wish everyone the best. Thanks so much, Lauren.
My absolute pleasure, Todd, and continued success with everything that you're doing. So impressive.
Was I right or was I right? Lauren is amazing, and she has a knack for connecting businesses to the places that they need to be in order to reach their target audiences. I highly suggest whenever you're in a rut and you're in a place in your business where you're just having a hard time messaging the right people, you've got to talk to a specialist. You've got to talk to someone who knows how to message that demographic. It could be 47-year-old single women who like to knit. Okay? Go talk to a knitter. Go talk to someone who's a specialist in understanding what they like to hear. And if you do this exercise and take her advice and in finding the right people to talk to, I promise you, your business is going to have a much better chance of hitting that audience with the right message at the right time and being able to grow your brand in that demographic and scale the way you were wishing you could. So stop taking advice from everyone that's in your demographic and talk to people who understand and know what the pain points and what the problems are that need to be solved in the people you're trying to reach. I hope this helps you. I hope this episode has been good for you in your business and has helped you get one step closer to learn what it takes to scale your business.